It's October 11th, 2023. It's about, well, it's almost sundown. The sun is just about to set. And I'm out here in the remaining portion of the beehives that have been devastated by pesticides over the last few years due to a neighbor who has a plain old mixed grass hay field that he thinks requires spraying fatal pesticide to keep the grass growing, which is impossibly untrue. I mean, look at the grass in front of my hives, it's thick, and I've never sprayed, of course, but he sprays across the road and it's enough to kill my bees in piles. Anyway, what I'm doing, the project I'm doing right now, is I'm replacing all the deep boxes, all these deep boxes, and I'm going to be putting them in medium boxes. These are the medium boxes. But since it's already the middle of October, I'm going to have to wait till spring to do most of the work. And I'm going to be doing that while dividing these beehives. And the reason I'm doing it is because the deep boxes are harder to extract without breaking the combs when you're foundationless. And I can't wire them because I do a lot of cutting on my bee combs. Part of my methods require that. And these right here are medium boxes. And I got 4 there and 3 there. And it's almost dark. Almost dark. That way is east, but it's already getting dark, as you can see, and the sun's setting over there. So the bees aren't flying very much right now, so I can get right in front of them. They're fanning a little nectar. But this beehive, I left both sides open. Now, the middle of October in Zone 7 is a good time to put in the mouse guards. See, they're propolising already the front of this. They're wanting a mouse guard. They're wanting to close their entrances off a little more. So that's what I got to do. And I'm going to use hardware cloth. It's a wire mesh that's square and has 1/2-inch squares. Very inexpensive. And you just cut them and staple them if you have a stapler. If you don't, you just nail them. I just nail very, very lightly because, and you could even thumbtack them. But you put them in front, and the mice, they're too weak to move them out of the way. And just put them where the mice can't get in there. Now, the mice will just easily move the entrance block out. They'll move the entrance block out and go in the winter. They're bad about that. When I feed the hives, and I'm feeding 3 hives, and those are my feeders that I use, I put them inside the hive that needs to be fed in a box. And I make sure the entrances are small because I don't want them getting robbed. And I make sure that there's nothing, no way for any robbers to get in. And I don't put scent inside the hive. I don't put any essential oil in those because it'll really cause some robbing issues. So I don't do that. But I often put essential oil when I feed them outside the hive. Now, if the hive is pretty strong, I put some essential oil anyway. But you run a risk of being robbed. The hive's robbing if there's essential oil because they can smell that so much. These are the tops of the hives that I had here on this row. They got poisoned with pesticides from the neighbor. That's how many I lost. There's about 25 or 26 there. There's another 4 over there. Yeah, he's pretty bad about that. I've been here 25 years and he's poisoned me out maybe 6 times. But I still have some remaining bees, so I guess I'm working on what you could call a pesticide immune to whatever he's been using. Still, it's not very immune because I still get massive kills every time. But anyway, feeding the bees that you see an inner cover on, because what I do is I put an inner cover on there, and then I put the box on top that's empty, and then I put a feeder in there. Now, I've actually put chunks of honeycomb in there to feed them, but what happened is the bees start filling the honeycomb pieces inside the hive, and when I put my feeder in, they start putting liquid into the honeycombs up there. It's ridiculous. So that doesn't work out. And anyway, so I guess I better get on back. My bees are a cross of the wild bees that were here since the beginning. They're dark bees with black queens that used to be here, called Apis mellifera mellifera, the same as Europe has in the northern hemisphere. The old timers called them the native bee, but in modern times, some academia has decided that they're not native, that they're feral, and that's bullcrap, because they found a fossil of an Apis mellifera bee in a lake in Nevada, in a dry lake bed recently. I think 2017 they found it, which is proof the actual modern honeybee was already here, and they called it Neo-Arctica, but they shouldn't have, because it's a German black bee and they admit it. It's just a regular old Irish black bee, Apis mellifera, whatever you want to call it by whatever name. But the native bee was black here, and all the old timers would tell you they kept those. And then in 1857 they imported the Italian, which has the pretty yellow on it, and they imported that in 1857. Cost a lot of money, but they imported them for quite a few years after that because they thought they were better than the black bee. But now in the UK and in Ireland, they're finding the black bee is actually better equipped for the north. The yellow Italian actually is an Africanized bee. There's no such thing as an actual Africanized killer bee. That's just a bunch of hype. But the yellow Italian is a product of the Italians in Rome trading with the Egyptians and North Africa across the Mediterranean, which is very close to them, for thousands and thousands of years before we had electricity, because they needed the candles to light the churches with. They needed the wax. Honeybees were extremely important, and they were a major commerce. And so their bees became yellow in Italy, whereas throughout the rest of Europe and everywhere else, the bees were dark, because dark absorbs heat, makes them warmer so they can fly in warmer and cooler weather, whereas yellow reflects heat from the tropics. The Italian bee is a very tropical kind of a European honeybee. It seems to have got that yellow color because yellow and orange reflect heat, and it also is it lays a lot of eggs all year round and doesn't really shut down for winter because it's not really developed for that. I don't really like the Italian bee because the drones are large and disruptive, very big and yellow. I like the darker bees, but here in the United States, I am not able to get Apis mellifera dark bees. They've gone extinct here because the Varroa mite came in the 1990s, and was very destructive. It wiped out all of the wild bees, the wild honeybees that had lived without beekeepers. And the Varroa destructor mite, which is a brand new mite developed from Varroa jacobsoni, is a fatal killer of the female worker bees while still in their cells, and while they're still young larvae. And the male Varroa destructor doesn't even come out of the cell. It stays in there its whole life. And they very rarely even get on the adult workers. They stay in the brood all the time, the females as well. And the way they move around is the male drones. In the afternoon, you'll notice your bees going a little wild in front of the entrance around anywhere from 11 to 2 in the afternoon. That's the drones flying from hive to hive to hive looking for some princess queens. And then when they find them, they flap in the trees and they chase them around real quick. It doesn't take them long. And then there's a swarm up there, and there'll be like 12 mated queens in there. And then they come back to the hive and they fight with each other. And the female queens kill each other. There's only one left in the hive, but oftentimes 2 or 3 of them will escape and find a new place to live, and that's how bees reproduce. It's really interesting. I catch a lot of swarms right here in this apiary from them mating in the springtime. I just recently caught another swarm just a week ago from one that mated. But this time of year, they take their drones and they kick them out in the fall. They kick them out and they don't allow them back in, and the queen won't make any more. She won't lay any more drones until springtime when swarm season comes. And then they stop making drones and drone cells when swarm season ends. So that's why I like being foundationless, because I can work on what they want to build when they want to build it, and then fix my combs up afterwards and all that. Anyway, I gotta get home because I gotta walk over there and bring these things back and refill them and head on back. But that's what's going on. I also like these screen bottom boards because I can pull them out and I can see what's going on here. I can look at the mites, see how many mites I've got, and how effective that my essential oils and stuff are. See how many mites fall when I'm using them. But I don't just use essential oils, I also use oxalic acid. Yep. Oxalic acid is a very, very inexpensive one. I don't know how much I talked about, but talk to you later. Bye-bye.